a couple reminders too. They have a booth set up out there. See an orange back here. Booth set up outside, as well as Holly with Capital Orthopedics. They got some stuff out there with a snack, some things out there. Please make sure you stop out there and check them out. Bob has worked with some pretty high-profile athletes for quite a while, and he's got some things on strength and conditioning. So, all right,
Thank you. Just to kind of get an idea, I've talked with a few of you guys on break and in between. What Class 1A schools? Raise your hand. Class 2A? Class 3A? Class 4? Okay, and now I think with basketball is 5, right? Class 5A now. Okay, so those of you that have the Class 4A, 5A, you guys have strength coaches in your school. You do? What school? Okay, good. Because they have the luxury of that. How about the Class 3A schools? You guys have a... Now, typically, the football coach or maybe the wrestling coach, the track or baseball, whoever, they might, designate themselves as a strength coach. The 3A schools, you guys have any coaches per se that you would go to call them the strength coach? What school?
Perry.
Oh,
3A and 4A, we have our good day classes are not tradition. We do have personal fitness and strength and conditioning.
Okay. So in Perry they do it through the school, whether it's PE or, and that's kind of, I used to teach and coach in Dowling here for a while, and they didn't, believe it or not, they never even had strength and conditioning there until like late 90s, if you can believe that. Their weight room was smaller than this room. And then, we started doing stuff with the girls basketball team, and then the boys basketball team and baseball and softball and all that kind of stuff. And now Coach Wilson, he's out there now, and he's got that weight room huge. Southeast Polk, they had a huge weight room. Valley, they had, great weight room. And Roosevelt, they have good room as well. I mean, they have a lot of, so those 3A schools, they're starting, in 4A, they're starting to implement that in their schools as teachers from junior high age all the way up to high school to get that basic technique down when it comes to strength and conditioning. And you call it fitness class?
We have two options.
Okay.
Again, personal fitness, which would be more aerobic, exercise balls, and strength and conditioning and speed development.
Okay, great. So that's a pretty good scenario there. And as you go down to the smaller schools, you don't really have the luxury of that. I went to a small 1A school, and we didn't have anything. We didn't even have an athletic trainer there. Besides strength and conditioning, I do athletic training as well. So Dr. Jacobson, when he talks about those shoulder injuries and all that other kind of stuff, you get a good trainer at your school, that helps a lot as well. And if they can help that strength coach with the strengthening, that helps as well as also. So, but basically, I'm just going to talk about a few things today. Just kind of basic things. From the warm up, you guys talk about the dynamic warm up to the static and all that kind of stuff. It has maybe in the old school started with the static where you sit there and hold it for 10 seconds. Dynamic, everybody's doing that, getting the body core warmed up. One sport that really does a great job of warming up, are there any wrestling coaches in here? Okay. And I used to coach wrestling as well, and those guys really get the body warmed up. Okay, obviously the room is warm. Whether it's just jogging or doing a cartwheel or a forward roll, or even just sitting here doing it like this. Okay, I'm not opposed to static stretching. Mainly post game would be fine. And then there are even some stretches that I can talk about on break if you're interested in, even just a simple one like this. If you have an inflamed rotator cuff, that's contraindicated. That's not good. Okay, so just we're taught to do little things like this and this and this, and all of that. So warming up, I'm more concerned about warming up the body. And Tamara here, she's going to kind of go down the aisle here, and I'm going to have you do a knee to chest, and just kind of go through about 5 of them. And she works with me. She covers some of the sports at DMAC and Boone. We do softball, baseball, volleyball, and basketball there. So she helps with that, and we do this with them. I don't care if they're 10 years old all the way up to college or pro. They do some type of dynamic warm-up. You may call it something different, but you're just constantly moving. Typically, I like to warm the athletes up 10 to 15 minutes, 20 minutes, good. I remember when I first worked with, luxury working in Iowa, some of the Iowa wrestlers, those guys would go for 20, 25 minutes, and then they'd say, okay, now we're warmed up. And some of those warm-ups would be like a workout for some people. So they get their body extremely warm. This one here is called Spider-Man, knee to elbow. Honestly, technique is important within the warm-up, within reason, but I'm just mainly concerned about having a bead of sweat coming down their forehead. If they don't have that, they're not ready. My boy, oldest boy, is 13. I have to struggle probably because I'm dad. I'm like, okay, you gotta get warmed up. He doesn't know what he just have somebody else do it for me. My kid. So she's going through a few things. These are called military walks with Frankenstein. I do the inchworm before that, so there is progression of some of these warm-ups. You don't go into the full ballistic kicks right away. You work your way up to that. Does that make sense? Okay. Another type of warm-up that I do is just with a simple stick. I might incorporate this in the routine. Just a lot of rotation. Most people will do strength training in the forward frontal plane and right and left sagittal plane. I try to do it in the transverse plane. Rotation. You can throw a ball farther, get your whole body into it like this versus like this or like this. That's only 2 planes. So you try to work all 3 planes. If you're running track, talk to a couple track coaches. If you're running straight ahead, that's multiple 1 plane. They call that uniplanar. So you do the sports that are soccer, basketball, start, turn, twist. Try to incorporate all those rotational movements within the warm up and the exercise. Does that make sense? Okay. Another one I do is the band. I have her lie down on her back there. She can put it around her foot. I did this with one of the teams I worked with. I had 50 guys out on the field. I brought bands on the field. People looked at me like I was nuts, but we'd already won a state title, so people were already respecting us anyway. And I had 50 guys. We took a little band. We do plantar flexion, dorsiflexion. Bring the leg up. Get the hamstring activating. So there's a lot of different types of warm-ups. Do you guys do anything different? You can do plate circuits. There's so many different types of warm-ups. Okay. We'll talk about strength, speed, and stability, education, explosive energy. First thing is basically strength. Now, to get strong, typically in the weight room, obviously, I'm a big proponent of all the Olympic lifts, squat, deadlift, clean. Does anybody do snatch in here in the weight room in their school? Okay, it's hard to teach, very hard to teach. If you're going to do that or even clean, you better know what you're doing. And start with kids at a 6th grade age, even at a fifth grade age is fine with just using a stick. So one of the schools we work with, a little bit east or west of here, some of the girls, you're probably still in their 3rd week with just a stick, and got about 30, 40 girls in there, and we don't move them on until they get that technique down, because I don't want to look at them as a trainer, look at their knee or their low back. I want to do more of the performance side of things, in the event or game. So when it comes to that, it's very. You guys remember Coach McGettigan from Iowa State? Anybody familiar with him? He was a pretty. He's at Air Force Academy now, but he would even have his college guys with Iowa State football when McCarney was there. He would not progress guys until probably the 2nd month until they did the squat. So he'd get these guys coming in from high schools that were not even doing it correctly. So the technique is huge. So with regards to strength, it could mean even a simple band exercise where she's going to do pinching her shoulder blades together. This is a strength exercise. Okay, this is what I would call a strength exercise. Another strength exercise, do the good morning. You can do a good morning with a bar. If you have a band, you can even do it with this. So straight up, Okay, that's a strength exercise. Okay, another one,
Go down the wall. Squats. 2 feet.
so this is a good technical exercise here, but even to take it a step further, actually does a couple with 2 feet, then go ahead and do single leg. So now we work on prevention, of a female basketball player where they're high rate and maybe tearing an ACL. So I incorporate that in there. So they can still do the regular front squat, back squat, you name it, but they need to do some of this uniplanar stuff. So then we'll have her do it from the side. So now she's at a 45-degree angle. She's going to tap that knee on the inside, and that allows her on the right side to push off for her lateral movement, lateral speed. This is an exercise to increase speed. So strength and speed go hand in hand. If you're not strong, you're not going to be fast. If you're not strong, you're not going to be explosive. So that's why I came up with the strength, speed, and stability. You've heard of some programs like Bigger, Faster, Stronger. Okay, that was out of Utah back in the 80s. It's a great program, but some of the stuff, it's easy to follow, but if you think about it, most people, not knocking anything, just to make that clear, but, most people want to get stronger, most people want to get faster, but a lot of the teams that we work with, they don't want to get bigger, okay? So I try to, you can still get bigger as long as you keep your speed. Some of the football guys I've worked with, their fear is if they get bigger, will they lose their speed? Well, you want to make, the athletes more athletic, more functional. Small town, I grew up in a small town, grew up on a farm, a lot of functional strength. You ever get those kids on a farm, they don't come in and lift 3 times, but they come in and now all at once they're, where'd that strength come from? Because they're functional. They don't do straight ahead, left side, right side. They twist and turn. They throw the bucket over the fence. So I even incorporate some of that stuff in the strength stuff. And you see these things on TV, like the Duckman competitions and the flipping tires and the chains. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you better have someone that knows there's technique even to flip a tire and even shoveling, and even keeping the load close. I remember. My dad said, bend your knees, use your legs. Well, you try to be, have an ego. A lot of boys, the 2 lifts they want to do in the weight room are the bench and the curls. That's all they want to do. So I try to work the whole backside, posterior chain I call it, upper back, mid back, low back, glutes, hamstring, calf. Okay, that's all the posterior chain. Okay. And a lot of kids, if they're good enough to play at the next level, they're very deficient in those areas. So another one, hamstring. Go ahead and in the middle there. I call this one the quadruple threat. It's just a superset to like a squat or a deadlift. So if you got a group of 3 in a rack, one guy lifting, one guy spotting, the other guy or girl doing something like this. Okay? So it just get more bang for your buck during that 45-minute to a minute time frame. So try to be as most efficient in the weight room. Most guys and gals that open up the weight room go at 6 in the morning, during the summer, and kids want to get in and out of there. And if they work, they got to get out of there. Driver's ed you're dealing with. Junior high kids during the year, they're even harder to schedule to do stuff with because they're in everything. And some of the smaller schools, it's tough because you're playing more than one sport. So when is there a true off season for that wrestler? When is there a true off season for that track guy or girl? There isn't. So sometimes you just got to try to get at least a couple times a week to do that, even if it's on a game day and they're pitching. I even do that. They can still do something, but they have to be used to it. I'm not going to throw them in there and burn their legs out. They have to pitch, that night. So it's all about getting used to all that stuff. Speed. One thing I incorporate, speed is important. Go ahead and put that around the elbow there. I use these see how that would help with keeping your elbows at 90. Okay, most runners, they come here like they're reaching back for a baton. Cheek pocket, put 2 bands on. Did a school yesterday. We incorporated those bands. They're not very expensive. So form running that way. We work on form running, straight ahead speed, lateral speed, even breaking down a cone. You guys are, the agility test, pro agility test, those agility exercises. Even running to a cone, you got to learn how to break down to the cone and then turn the corner and then come back and sprint. So there's even technique for that. You just can't print something off on a online and say, hey, run this drill. There's technique to it. So if you have a trainer or if you have a strength person in your school or somebody that goes to some of these classes, utilize them. Because it's starting to become, more of a science than anything compared to even when I was in high school and college. So, and then knowing when to, when you do speed and agility, when you do it after an explosive lift day, so there's a 3-day routine, 4-day routine. Your needs is kind of how I work with coaches on stuff like that, and their population. Because if you're an 8-man football, that's a little bit different than regular 11-man, So, so speed, that's one thing. Stability. What do you think stability means? I threw that in there. I took the bigger part out of the bigger, faster, stronger. And I put the word stability in there. What do you think that could mean?
Body movement.
What's that?
Control your body movement.
Yeah. So go ahead and come out here. In order to be strong, you got to be stable. In order to be stable, you better be strong. I've had a lot of guys who can bench press a house, but they can't hold themselves up in a push-up position on the ball, and hold themselves there. So you work on stability of the shoulder, stability of their hips, their legs. I might come over here and just kind of tap them a little bit. Maybe pull them this way. They don't know where I'm pushing them. You got to be stable. If you're boxing somebody out, you have to be stable to box them out. Okay, fronting somebody, you have to be stable, but that kind of comes together with strength. So like Dr. Nixon talked about the shoulder, the rotator cuff fits over that ball. You have to be, those rotator cuff muscles have to be strong, hold that ball in place. There's the stability. Because that's an easily dislocated joint, that shoulder. The hip is not as easily because that's deeper in the ball and socket, that femur. Femoral head is right up in that socket. That's harder to dislocate. So that's stability. Another one is go ahead and lay on your back, come up to a bridge. You don't have to use a ball. Okay, just holding yourself there, just trying to knock her off her base. Hold yourself. Okay, hold yourself. She got a torn ACL on her right side. You might do this. She got to be able to hold herself up on this side. So recognizing what she has. That's hard to do. Okay, keep that up. There. Here. And then relax and do the other side. So being stable there. Sit on the ball. And lie down. Head on the ball. Yep. So even holding your arms up in place here, holding them as strong as you can, and let me try to pull them out of her position. Okay. Exercise good for softball pitchers, volleyball, overhead sports, wrestling. You get different positions. So that kind of makes sense with stability. That's just a few exercises. One more I'm going to show you. Go ahead on the wall with that fan. This one requires strength to do. But if you go up and down there, you do that about 4 or 5 reps. You'll feel those muscles you don't really feel. So I kind of explain this to coaches. If you're going to build a house, you got to lay that foundation. And this is easy to do even for my middle daughter. She's 10. She even does this. She's only 10. This is not tough on her joints. It's very minimal resistance. She goes side to side. That really fires those rotator cuff muscles and those stabilizers. Okay, those stabilizers of any joint in your body, elbow, shoulder, hip, ankle, etc. Okay, so that's where the stability. That's probably where my bread and butter is, more in stability. If you build that house, you lay the foundation, you put the first floor, second floor, and then that's where you build your strength up. Because I've had guys that they'll do some of this stuff, and their bench and squat go up quite a bit if they incorporate that in it. It's not any more time. It's just incorporating that within the workout while they're recovering, while their partner is spotting. Okay, does that make sense? So those are just a few things. Let's see. Another one, like you guys have seen these, right? I like these just because 2 feet, and while she's standing there. This is called the proprioceptive exercise. You can go ahead and everybody stand up for a second. Okay, I want you to bounce on your right foot. Okay, and now close your eyes and try to bounce on your right foot. Okay, now close your right eye. Okay, and relax. Okay, was it tougher with your eyes closed or one eye open? Okay, and that's just getting ahead of the game for injury prevention. So if you teach that in the warm-up, by the time they turn their knee in a game or their foot on a base or on a sprinkler head in a football field, I've seen them, sometimes they don't take care of that. Your mind will tell you not to do that if you train this type of stuff too. That makes sense? So, knowing where you're at, body awareness is huge. With kids in gymnastics and dance at a young age, I'm okay with that. Doing a cartwheel, and as they get maybe 10 or 11, you can tell they're going to have a gymnastic body. They're a little bit taller, they're going to be harder for them, but so knowing where they're at is huge. Okay, get this out. And then when I have just a couple exercises on this, while she's bouncing there, I'll just have her touch the ground 3 times, Cameron. And you notice if they have any deficit in their ankle, or their shin, or their knee, even her hip, it works up the whole kinetic chain. So if she's working all of that, then this is a good preventative exercise, or even a strengthening exercise, more like an advanced rehab session in a way. I mean, Dr. Jacobson talked about having a good trainer, having a good therapist. Those are 2 things. Having a good surgeon is a 3rd thing. Overall conditioning. If you I have a picture on the West Coast. He had elbow surgery. Well, he can't do anything for 10 days. So I gave him something to do for his lower half. He needs to be doing stuff with his lower body. You shouldn't just have kids just sit out because their wrist hurts. They can run. Okay? If their ankle's sprained, they can do push-ups. They may not like you, and it takes about 2 weeks to get over that before you start having kids, getting through conditioning. Because you always have those kids that are like, I'm a little hurt. I need my inhaler. Nothing wrong with that, but you wonder, okay? I mean, I'm not, I need that. Well, do you really need it? Or do you just trying to get out of something? So part of this is developing a mentality with your team or your kid, what you're training too. As coaches, which ones are really good at motivating the kids, and they'll run. You guys are the gatekeepers for all those kids. If your knee hurts, where do I go? You tell them. They listen to you more than most people. So they'll run through the wall for you. But when so you get to do stuff like that, and then you'll eliminate those kids that aren't. Maybe I'm not hurt. I did that with a team one time, and after about 2 weeks, my stuff on the side was harder than conditioning. So then coach loved it because he had never had anybody miss out of that. So you get that's kind of contagious. Another kid sees another kid; they're not doing something. So it kind of trickles into the mind. So anyway, and that kind of carries over to stability here too. No pun intended, but I've got to have that stableness, all that. The E part, explosive. You have these buzzwords on TV, being plyometrics, explosive, core. But a lot of people don't really know what those mean. Some people do. what I call a core is pretty much everything but the arms and legs. Not just the abs, not just the low back. It's the hip flexors, it's the hamstring, it's the glute. All of that stuff in the core has to be stable, to be strong, to be explosive. Okay? If you have some deficit somewhere from an injury, or maybe you're just not doing something there, then you're not going to be successful. And your best players, it trickles down even to a business. If LeBron James is hurt, Game 7 on Thursday night, if he's hurt, they're probably not going to win. And then it even trickles down even to a business, and they won't sell many tickets and all that. So I mean, it's coming to that now, which is kind of, that part that I don't really care for as much. But so explosive, that component would be simply go ahead and stand on that chair, Cameron. And in order to be explosive, she needs to know, like say for instance on jumping, so face me. I'm going to teach her how to land. Okay, so she's going to come off the chair, land, and she knows how to do this because she's seen me do it with a lot of groups. So that's where the educational component comes in. Land softly. Land coming down into a squat. Don't let the knees come in. That's genu valgum. Knees come in, ACL waiting to tear. Okay? So in order to correct that, then I might teach her how to do a squat with this. Go ahead and put it below your knee. I love these bands. They're not very expensive.
Well, where do you get them?
I have some. They're like $5 or something like that. Very cheap. Go ahead and do a squat for me. And notice the band there as she moves her knees out to the side. She's very stable in her feet. They're not turning in or everting or valgus with the knee. Now see how they come in if she's not strong there, her glutes. Do about 2 more. That's a lot of girls have that problem, and even some guys do too at the younger age. You can tell. I went to one school on Tuesday. This kid, I was like, that kid's potential D1, D2 athlete. He would do something different than that. Okay, but from all kids at like 12, 13, 14, 15, that's body weight. You can do strength there. Okay? So let's do 2 more. So watch her feet. She's stable in her feet. She's not turning it in, and she's getting down to parallel. And sometimes I have these beepers from BFS. I bought them a long time ago. They beep when you go down to 90. I like those because it gives them a good kinesthetic awareness. They know they're at 90. Because I could sit back here and say, get down lower, bend your knees. Or even, how about a dad from the stands? Follow through, come over the top. Kid doesn't know what that means. They better know what it means. So when you run out on the mound, hey, you feeling that? They need to correct it. You can't correct it for them. It's all about the feel and how they feel. It's them as they get older. They need to know how to correct that. Okay. So she needs to know what that feels like to get down to parallel. Okay. Another one. Good. And now lean over. Now she's like that. That's not good. Her core is not strong. So she needs to be, so you're doing cues through the educational part. You guys have done this before. And, feet shoulder width. Neck your shoulder blades. Head forward. You're giving them little cues. If you got to laminate them and put them in the squat rack, like Coach Doyle at Iowa, set your core. Simple 3 words. Set your core. He has all those laminated in his squat racks. Okay? Okay, so go back up on the box, or the chair. So in order for explosive, landing technique is huge. In order to jump, you need to know how to land. So then you would do this with 2 feet. I like to do it on a wrestling mat first. Basketball court's fine. Even a grass is fine as long as there's no divots in there. Good infield or golf course type grass. I know we're not luxury to have that sometimes, but so go ahead and land into a squat. So you don't want to teach them to land like a gymnast, like how they land and stick the dismount. They might do that. Well, you don't want to keep those knees or those legs straight at 180 degrees. You got to give a little bit of bend to it. Okay. So once you can do that, then you teach them to get down into the squat to a more athletic position. Okay. And your better athletes will be able to do that. And if they can't, then you got to start from here and work your way up. You know, everybody has 5, 6 stud horses, but it's those 5 to 10 guys or girls that you're developing. That's what's going to get you to districts and regionals and state and win titles. Because everybody has a good pitcher, everybody's got a good basketball kid. Every school pretty much has all that. You know, but when you have 3, 4, and 5 starters on a team, and the 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 guys that are doing their positions and their jobs, that's what's kind of fun. You know, volleyball. I don't know. I mean, I've worked with a lot of volleyball players, but I'm not a coach, so I don't know as much on that sport as volleyball. But you know, even with no contact, I've seen girls blow their knee out going up for a block, coming down, not knowing how to land. So that's why I throw in the landing. And even I throw in like a normal, in the warm-up, I didn't mention this, like a forward roll. They need to know how to land, because normally they'll reach out and fall on an outstretched arm, break their wrist. They don't know how to do that. I'm not teaching you gymnasts, but I'll even do it with the team on a basketball court. At first, they're like, why are you doing this? Well, I have to dive for the ball. Try to make it as functional to that sport as you can. I'm not going to make it all the time, but just enough to volleyball rolls. They do it over their shoulders. You know, they're diving. You know, so and then after you get up here, so like on this one, I would call that first jump a non-repeat jump. Even though she didn't jump, she didn't repeat it. So you might call it a land, but I call it a non-repeat jump. That makes sense? So when she lands, it's a non-repeat. So if I have 30 people, I'll explain that to the kids. All right, you guys, give me 5 non-repeat jumps. And they know what they are. Now I'm going to have you give me just 2 repeat jumps off 2 feet. Okay? So you're going to go here, and then come back up and jump up the block, or grab a rebound, or that's where you're going to do your vertical. But you better be able to know how to squat to get kids up here on a box that high. If you got linemen weighing 250, they can't get up. They're not going to, they better, you know, they might weigh 250, but they better be able to squat 450 or 4, you know, in order for them to be explosive. You know, one rule of thumb is, you know, I read in order for groups to start jumping, they better be able to squat 1.5 times their body weight. You know, the bigger people, they're not, they're big and they can lift more, but pound for pound, usually your strong guys are 150, 200 right in there. They're very, very strong pound for pound. And that's called a repeat jump. So then I would do it. Okay, go ahead and stand up. Give me a non-repeat on your right leg. 1. Yeah, now see how she kind of caught herself, moved in. Okay, and then now they can't get into a full unilateral squat or uniplanar squat into one leg. Some people can, but not very many. Just sit here and do a squat with one leg and come back up. That's strength. Okay, so she's working on that. He kind of came in a little bit, so then she probably needs to work on the glutes. Okay, and then that's called a non-repeat. So that would be like the educational part of that explosive component. Makes sense? So I'm big. I taught for 10 years in high school, and I still sub here and there, and I like teaching. I love the educational part. You know, teaching some continuing ed and all that kind of stuff. Education. You know, if you don't educate parents, you know, about cutting weight and they never wrestled before, those parents go nuts. You know, what? You can't eat anything here. Or I'll see them cauliflower ears. Oh my gosh, do I drain that? Well, they kind of want it. The kid wants it. But the mom, they want it drained. And then you're out for 3 weeks. You don't know, you don't have somebody there that, dealt with that before. So, no matter what sport it is, it's educating. Where I went to school, we never had soccer. I didn't even know what offside was. You know, and if your kids are playing it, you understand the game and educate educating. I want to get educated if I'm not a coach. You know, I'm pretty lucky to be around a lot of coaches that know the game, and I can learn from them. Kind of as a trainer covering games too. I've been like at their side. You know, and I oh, I didn't know that was the rule for that, or even hockey. I covered a hockey team one time here in town. I didn't know hockey. I didn't have that. So education, squat education. I mentioned this before for cleans. I start with this: knowing your foot placement, squat shoulder width, clean hip width, Romanian deadlift hip width. Okay. So on the Romanian deadlift, I'll have her put the bar or the stick on her thigh, and then hip width, and just kind of go through that, and you bend your knees just a little bit. Yeah. And you need to feel that in the hamstring. And the kid might say, well, I feel my back. Well, you're not doing it right, so you need to back up. Okay? So you work with the stick. And then, so those types of lifts are hard to teach. Then another school I was at the other day, they do a lot of push press and split jerks and stuff like that. And some of the coaches that aren't football coaches, they get intimidated by those lifts because they don't know what they are, and that's okay. You just have to learn it from them or practice it with a stick, and you can even have your girls do that. Because when I first started, the girls hardly were ever in the weight room. And now they actually probably listen better and are more intent than some of the guys. Would you agree with even some of the kids that we work with? I try to knock that ego out of that room right away, because I can humble even a pretty strong kid pretty quick. But it's not about that. It's just making them, sometimes you have to do that. I remember when I was in high school, I thought I could mess around with my football coach. Well, he's like almost 50, he about killed me. Because, he's an 18-year-old kid, you think you can do a lot, and you can't. So just trying to get that out of their thinking. The energy part, through this in there, that's nutrition and sleep. And post-nutrition tournament, my son had 3 games yesterday, 8 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, and 6 at night. So what does he eat during that time? Softball tournament, you might have 4 games. Volleyball tournament. Football, you just have 1 game. A little bit easier to deal with when you come back, because it's a traditional pregame meal on a Thursday night. Basketball tournament, you usually have 1 game. You may have 2. When you're younger, though, like Doc was talking about, keeping pitch counts and playing basketball tournament. These kids. My oldest is 13. It's all about playing 80 games in baseball. What happened to maybe playing 25 and practicing the other 3 times a week? Whatever happened to that? They lose their fundamentals. I'm on a elite club team. Big deal. I tell my kid that even. I'm playing with them. We got 40. So, you have to learn how to bend your knees to get a ground ball. You have to learn how to throw with technique. He talked about throwing a curveball. I'm lucky to be a partner with a guy here in town. Anyone ever heard of Grand Slam? Jim Holman? Phenomenal. Like with teaching kids how to throw correctly. And I did not have my son throw a curveball. I have him do probably throw a change up. Off speed. It's all about changing speeds up anyway. Not until next year probably. It's 14, 15. You can throw hard, but I'm not having to do that. And then you got these little guys throwing number 2s, just constantly strike guys out. But you wait about 3 years, they won't do anything with that. You just got to tell your kids at a 13-year-old, 12-year-old age, their mentality. It's like, like the other day, one of the moms wanted to put an umbrella over the dugout because there was too much sun. And that's just the mentality we live in. I'm not saying she's right or wrong, but I'm like, just you're in there for an hour and a half, just play. That's kind of my background philosophy. Pamper something, and that comes in the weight room. That mentality, the energy. Oh, are you okay? Oh, I'm tired. Well, get some sleep. They need sleep. That growth hormone is working during those ages. sleep is important, so, what to eat before a game, what to eat after a game. There's so much stuff to think of as coaches and parents. The other day we were in Lincoln in a tournament, and let's go to McDonald's for breakfast. The only thing that's open at 7:30 in the morning. So, pack your own. Whatever happened to that back in the day? Why don't you just pack a picnic basket? That's good nutrition. Stuff out of the garden. Tomatoes out of the garden. Apples off the tree. That's fuel. Carbs are fuel. Protein is good too. But and then we get into supplements. Okay, that's a whole other topic. I promote some stuff, like good protein stuff for some kids, but not until the right age. And I always preach that it's the word supplement, not replacement. You still eat what you do, just along with that, you can have a protein drink, a protein shake, helps with recovery. But then you better do your homework when you go into GNC, because then somebody might have, $100 body, but a 10-cent head, because they don't know what they're talking about. Okay? 19 years old, never been through college, never done this, never done that. So you better do your homework there. So it's all about doing your homework when it comes to nutrition, strength and conditioning. Because you want the best for your kid. Most of you probably have kids of your own that were athletes, and some of them are probably like the kids that you coach. So that's where those three things come into play. But I'm real big about education. I don't know. You guys are all teachers. I'm sure you guys are too. There. Any questions? I went through a lot of stuff. Yeah.
You have, like I coach girls basketball, and we run into a lot of ACL stuff.
Yeah.
And is there like what are some things I can do like before practice or before the game to have them like basically warm that ACL? I don't know whether warm it up or you know what I mean.
Yeah. You need to go ahead and do the band walks. I need to show them this. A lot of times when those girls, they're deficient, they're walking forward and backward. That's a good 5-minute exercise. They can do that while they're shooting free throws or something. That's right. So she went forward and backward. This is a good athletic position in any sport: wrestling, baseball, basketball, defensive slides. You guys know what those are. A lot of kids don't even get down. So her core is strong because her back is arched and she's down with her knee slightly bent, and she's not bringing her one more time just down that way. She's not letting her right foot come against her left foot. She's staying wide. Okay? So and then go ahead and do a march. So this works the hip flexor, keeping the hip flexor, the glutes, those exercises. Squats in the weight room, hamstring work will help, and teach them how to land. So that's just a easy march. A lot of soccer. If you just think about those injuries that linger on through the season, you think of those injuries like a hamstring pull. I bet you had about 5 of them during this year's track season, which is horrendous with the weather. And they didn't, it's because a lot of them were running inside in the school. They weren't outside on the track or a different surface. They were running around one way. If you do that for 2 weeks in a row, you're going to develop something that's not normally there. That makes sense? So then maybe one day you go clockwise, the other day you go counterclockwise. Kind of balance it out. Okay? Along with the hip flexor, I brought this table in. Just thought I'd show you. A lot of kids that are sitting like you guys, they're short. Okay? That'll help the hamstring, help the low back. So I just got this table. All my athletes, they love it. You can try it if you want. You sit on the edge and just kind of open your whole upper body back, bring your arms back, and then let the legs just drop. So that just opens up that whole hip flexor. So it's all in relationship to the rotation of that pelvis. So if it's in neutral, then everything should be working properly. Okay, I usually do that right at the end. Now this is a static stretch. This is a post thing. Okay, there's a difference. When I warm them up, we don't do that. It's all moving and running and skipping. You might do butt kicks, forward walks, inchworm, whatever you want to do. Okay, there's nothing new out there, 3 minutes, okay? So those are some things that you can do. Teach them how to land off that bleacher, that first step. I always have the janitor come out and pull it out to get all the girls up there. All right, give me 2 non-repeat jumps. And they're teaching them not to bring their knees in. They get to that point with their glutes, your ACLs will go down. I mean, you can't prevent all injuries. I wish you could, but your incidences will go down. And then no different than like arm stuff through the season. With teams I've worked with, elbow, shoulder, those are the ones that you just kind of kick yourself because those are lingering. Yeah.
Go ahead. Okay, so when those knees are blowing in, that's typically
glute, hamstring. Yep, you don't want those knees to come in. Even in the squat rack, if they're coming in here, light and load up, and then watch them do that squat. Make sure they're on the outside. Even like on chain link fence, I might have them hold it here and sit back in that chair on the heels, sit back on the heels, or you get a partner. Okay, go ahead and sit back. She's leaning back, and then after 2, can have it without me. Fine. Now put up on your toes and do a squat. You see that sometimes. Okay, that's a back injury waiting to happen. Okay, weight room is for prevention, not to get hurt in. Even on boxes. Boxes are great, but I've seen. One time at a school, there was a girl. They were ranked in the top 5. She was their stud pitcher. In May, she broke her elbow, broke her arm because she landed. She hit her shin on the hard steel box, and she fell. That was a track team, good kid. Last year, stuff like that. You don't want to happen. Question back here.
I was just saying, a lot of kids, when you start talking warm up and stretches, you lose them.
You do.
I mean, it's almost like, I hate to say it, it's almost like wasted time.
It is. And what I would do is have somebody else warm up instead of the head coach. Just something different. Because I did the teams that warmed them up because they're always with the head guy or girl. Maybe your assistant does that. I did it. At 4A school, we had the luxury to do that. And then I got out of there. And that was my job. And I kept them online. And you're right. They don't, even when you warm up throwing, it just, that's drives me nuts. It starts at that young age, that mentality. If they're not sprinting out on the field or doing whatever, that's just, it's going to be harder for you to get that back. But it starts at that mentality.
Do you do different things in warm ups so that they don't? Because I find a kid that you do a warm up, you tend to do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I do. We have about 5 different types of warm ups. Because if I do one throughout the season, then we do it again. Then I can tell when I lose them, and I change it up. Even the weight room, we have to change it up. But it's hard when you're in a smaller school and they don't have a true off season, and they call that periodization. If you have the larger schools, you may have a good kid doing maybe 2 or 3 sports. But I've had some kids at Southeast Bowl. One kid, he did like 4, and he was proficient in all of them. But he was busy. And good kid, didn't want to let the football coach down because he was doing basketball. Didn't want to let this down because he was doing track. So you're pleasing everybody. So, yeah, I changed up a lot, actually. And I even, when I do my speed and agility camps, I'll bring in somebody. I brought in a guy from Drake one time, Mike Potterman, he's not here anymore. And then I brought another guy in just to change it up for me. Because, as teachers, they get sick of you after a while, and you might get sick of them. Both ways. Yeah.
Days of the event, and you're in a lifting program, and you're getting plenty of rest, and nutrition's good. Good? Keep on the same program?
Yeah.
That day of the event?
Yeah. What sport?
Oh, I teach a BFS class.
Oh, yeah.
Year long.
You bet.
Every day, Friday night, you got football, Tuesday basketball, wrestling.
Yeah, if they're constantly doing that, you're okay, in my opinion. Yeah. And I like their organization part of that. ready for break records and stuff like that. You know, there's just a couple things that I modify within that. I don't call it that, but yeah, if they're doing that all the time.
Our BFS classes are in the morning, so you
Yep.
have enough time to recover.
Oh, yeah. Yep. They're used to that. But then you'll have a coach say, well, I want to hurt. And even swimming coaches, we're tapering off. They'll stay coming out. They don't even get to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's, you gotta work with that coach.
You have problems, we're a 2A school, and we have hired a performance therapies out of Coralville, come in and they've done our weight program, and it's not our traditional bench pyramid and things like that.
Is
We're
that
doing,
with Dave over
yep,
there?
and we're doing a lot of the core and a lot of looks like that. It's hard to sell kids early to get them bought into that. You
Well,
have
yeah,
problems with that?
because I've had, even last year, I had some kids say, when are we gonna go in the weight room? I'm like, this is strength training. You need to be able to do this. So it helps from you as a coach to relay that to them. That helps a lot. What they're doing is great. Maybe incorporate some heavier duty Olympic lifts, because those are important too. If you can get both of them in there, because one of the guys that worked with me, he worked there. I know a little bit about them. Yeah, they go to a few different schools, I think, right?
Yep.
Yeah, they do good.
Let's thank Bob for his time today. Thank you very much. Just good, they got a couple tables set up out here, one with the Capital Orthopedics, and Bob has a table with some stuff out here with some of their products.
That would be fun. I had some questions call, but
That works pretty good. I didn't. Was it wireless to here? Is that the deal? How's this work?
Well, I'm using them all as cameras, but these auto upload to that. So my memory card is going straight to the computer.
Too easy.
Oh, this is Dr. Marcus.
Hi, man. Brian Bertini.
He'll be introducing you.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Anything or?